So we are standing inside this beautiful apartment, which is one of your latest conversion projects.
Forecast to make about £1.5 million profit.
How did you manage to fund something like this?
And you're absolutely right, you don't need to have any experience in property to do these types of projects. You just need to follow that system.
You've got these opportunities in your areas, you just need to know how to monetize on them. So you want to just take us through that? In today's video, I am here with the wonderful Dan Eaton, the UK's leading expert in commercial conversions. Now, we are currently standing inside one of his latest projects. So, Dan, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, good afternoon everyone and welcome. Thank you very much for having me on the channel. It's great to be here. As Katie said, my name is Dan Eaton and I am a commercial conversion developer. What does that mean? Well, it means I take commercial buildings like the one we are in at the moment and I convert them into lovely residential apartments. Hopefully, helping with the housing crisis, but also making a bit of profit as well.
Fantastic, thanks Dan. So we're currently standing inside one of the apartments you're converting from the bigger building, which we can see. Mm-hmm. It looks like a big scary project. To someone who's maybe never been in property before, maybe someone who's never done a commercial conversion before, this looks like a really big, scary, intimidating project.
Yeah, I hear that actually quite a lot actually, Katie. And if you think about it, even the terminology, commercial conversion, sounds scary. It sounds like you have to have massive projects, hundreds of people around, loads of moving parts, loads of money, and it's very, very scary. But the reality is with these types of projects, as with any other type of property project, we just buy something and we add value to it. Now in this case, what we'll be doing is we're taking a building that already exists and we're sending in our professional refurbishment team to do what it is that they normally do, i.e. their jobs, refurbishments, into these residential apartments. So realistically, if you start thinking about it as a slightly bigger refurbishment project, it's nowhere near as scary. And that's the reality. It's just a refurbishment project.
Exactly. So for those people who maybe are aspiring to buy a buy-to-let single house, chances are it's going to need something doing to it, at least paint and carpets. Effectively, there's a little bit more to it, but effectively that's what you're doing, isn't it? Just on a bigger scale.
That's exactly it, yeah. We just are taking a bigger building, but we're using professionals. So I don't do the work here. I'm not down here installing kitchens or painting walls or installing carpets. We pay the professionals to do that. Now, because we've got a bigger project, we have bigger budgets, which means we can afford to use the professionals to do everything for us. So realistically, my job is just to ask the professionals to do their job, but do it for me. So It's not like I'm down here every morning opening up the site, making sure that all the trades are turning up where they need to. That's not my job. We employ someone to do that. So anyone who's out there doing a smaller project, you find yourself on a smaller project, opening up, making sure the builder's turned up, making sure the plumber turns up. That's not what this is all about. So all those moving parts are coordinated by a project manager. So someone does that work for us.
Yeah.
And in the reality, it's the same process as doing a smaller project. You find the project, you do your numbers, you put your funding and your team together, and then you let them crack on and create these wonderful apartments.
Yes, for which this one's not quite finished yet, but it looks absolutely brilliant. So we are standing inside this beautiful apartment, which is one of your latest conversion projects. But there is something very special about this particular project, isn't there? Because what you've actually done is you've partnered with one of your delegates that you've trained, and you're doing this project together. And just to point out, the person that you are working with on this project was brand new to property when they came to you. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
That's absolutely true. So commercial conversions is just about following a proven system. Now, the system we use is called Develop It, and I train people how to use that system for themselves so they can do these types of conversions themselves. Now, one of our delegates came through the training, came through, learned the system, started implementing it, and then we ended up working together on this particular project as well. So this is one of their first commercial conversions. And you're absolutely right, you don't need to have any experience in property to do these types of projects. You just need to follow that system, and that's exactly what that person did.
Yeah, so it's absolutely about following a system. It's about taking massive action. But just something I'd like to sort of get a gauge for on behalf of the audience is, It's not something you can really just go out and do on your own, is it? So tell us a little bit about that.
What a lot of people do when they start getting into property, and I see this all the time, is they try and do everything themselves. They try and do it all on their own. They'll sit on their own computer, looking at all the information, trying to do it themselves. Now the reality is, nobody is successful by themselves. Everyone has, teams around them, they have mentors, they have people they can go to for advice and education, and that's exactly the same with this particular strategy. This strategy is about following the system. Now you can't just go out there, learn a system on things like YouTube, and then go and implement it and do these types of conversions. You need to know the intricacies, and you also need to have people who have been there and done it to help you along that path. And that's exactly what this is about. That's exactly what the person who's done this particular project has done as well.
Yeah, taking massive action. So the key is that you don't necessarily need experience to do a project like this, but you do need the right people around you.
Absolutely. One of the things I always say about anything, if you want to be successful in anything, you need the 3 steps, okay? The first one is you need to get yourself an education. You need to understand what it is you're getting into. The second thing is you do need the teams and the people around you. Now, those are the people who are going to help you get from wherever you are to wherever you want to be. The ideal is to have someone who is where you want to be and work with them. And the third thing, as you mentioned there, is you've got to take that massive action. But there's no point taking lots of action if it's the wrong sort of action, looking at getting your branding sorted, we talk about this positive procrastination stuff. No, you need to take action. You need to go to those events. You need to head up with those people who are doing this type of stuff and work with them.
Brilliant. So Dan, the numbers on this property, again, seem very big and intimidating. How much did you buy it for? Do you want to take us through the numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. I know everyone who is on the YouTube is going to want to know the numbers on this particular project. So I'll give you them in big handful terms, because we're not going to go down to the penny. Okay, but we bought the building for about 3.5 million. Okay, so 3.5 million pounds. There was some associated costs and solicitors' fees and all the rest of it, but 3.5 million pounds in terms of purchasing the building. In terms of refurbishing it to take it from the old office block that it was to these wonderful apartments that you now see, we spent about £2.5 million on the refurbishment, which means after we've got the cost of the finances involved and we've sold all the projects, forecast to make about £1.5 million profit.
Wow. So that sounds really big and really exciting. How did you manage to fund something like this?
Well, it is big and exciting, of course it is, but it's taken me 7 years to get to do a project of this sort of size. Obviously, I'm working with my delegate who started first time, so that's absolutely fine. You can do that if you partner with the experience. But what I would say about the big numbers and the big scary numbers is it doesn't really matter what the numbers are, it's about following the process. And once you learn the system of how to do commercial conversions, you can apply them to these big schemes, but you can equally apply them to smaller schemes. I'm sure the viewers out there have all seen, small shops or banks that have closed down in their areas. You could easily do this system on those types of projects, and make maybe 1, 2, 3, 400,000 pound profit very, very easily on those smaller projects. So you don't need to go straight in and do a big project like this.
Yeah.
But in terms of funding it, again, the principles of this particular project are the same as any other project. And that is, of course, to use investors, use other people's money. Okay, because no matter how much money you've got, you're going to run out of it at some point. So you might as well learn at the start how to raise funds from other people and get involved, get partners involved, get investors involved, and use other people's money. And that's exactly what we've done on this particular project.
Fantastic, Dan. So just something else I wanted to touch on actually is you mentioned local commercial buildings that might be sat empty in your areas right now. Mm-hmm. There is a massive demand. Obviously we've got a housing crisis, you can expound on that a little bit more. But most importantly, you've got these opportunities in your areas. You just need to know how to monetize on them. Do you want to just take us through that a little bit? You're
absolutely right. We have got across the country a massive housing shortage.
Yeah.
365,000 new homes every year are supposed to be built. We're roughly building about £240,000. The previous government scrapped the target because they couldn't meet it. The new government's brought in even bigger targets, but no one's really sure how we're going to meet those. We've got this national housing shortage. On the flip side, commercial buildings aren't necessarily in demand anymore. After COVID, everyone started working from home, so office blocks became a bit more redundant. The high street, you've seen it closing down. You've seen all these shops closing down. Maybe not like Regent Street in central London, but in your areas you'll have high streets and secondary shopping parades and stuff that are just all closing down. All those buildings are empty. And banks are a big one. If you think back to post-COVID world, no one's using banks anymore. They're all closing them down. They're trying to push us away from using cash and make everything contactless. And those buildings are all empty. Now, all of those buildings I've mentioned, those shops, those cafes, those restaurants, those office blocks and those banks, all of those buildings can be converted under what's known as permitted development, which means we can take them and convert them into residential properties without the need to go through planning permission, which is also a massive, massive plus for this type of strategy.
Dan, thank you so much for being with us today, and I just want to say a massive thank you for you guys for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you like, subscribe, and if you want to comment, if you've got any questions, put them in the comments. We will come back to every single one. If you want to meet Dan in person, then you need to attend our Property Income Accelerator event. And in order to attend that event, you need to register. The link to do that is in the description below. See you in the next video.